Okay, B'siyata Dishmaya, we are here. Shar Yichud in Tzfat. Baruch Hashem. Thank you, Hashem, for another week in this world. We are in the week of Parashat Pikudei, Shvat Chodesh coming up, and we're going to be learning in Neshama, Neshima, the Jewish breathwork series, which we haven't touched in a while. Today we're going to be learning about Besod HaTchiyah, in the secret of resurrection. Lahayot Hayim, to bring life to the living. Right? There's Lechayot Metim, is to bring life to the dead, resurrect the dead, and then there's resurrecting the living. And this is what we're going to be learning, is how breathwork can affect this idea. Put your seatbelts on, because it's going to be a deep class. It might be a two-part class, just this one topic. And mainly we're going to be talking about the Shoah. We're going to be talking about the Holocaust and how it connects to breath. And hopefully try to learn some things that get out of this idea, B'ezrat Hashem. May it be Eliyahu Neshama for all the 6 million that perished, right, and every other Jew that's ever been taken by the hands of enemies. B'ezrat Hashem, may all those souls have an Aliyah. Ikarti nar ivri yalid shnot azam be'Europa. Rabbi Bezinson says he met a Jewish boy, a Hebrew boy, who was born during the years of rage in Europe, meaning during the World War II. This kid was adopted by non-Jews, was taken on by non-Jews during the Holocaust, and he was raised as a goy completely. He's a Jew. Until he found out the truth that he's actually Jewish. התקשורת שפרסמה בשנות ה-50 את התמונות וסרטי הזוועות המתעדים את השואה. Not only that as he started to grow up in the 50s, they started to put out videos and documentations and proof of everything that was going on in the Holocaust. In the 50s, all this stuff started to come out in the news, in the media. And he started to understand, not only am I a Jew, this is what my people were going through. Right? It's not like now you have social media, videos are everywhere. Right? It took a few years for the world to really, really understand what the Holocaust actually was. How intense the German campaign really, really, really was against the Jews. Right? And throughout the whole entire world. So now this kid is growing up as a goy. He finds out he's Jewish. And now all of the story of why he was raised by goyim starts to come out as well. All of this aroused him to want to seek out, who am I? What is my essence? What does it mean that I'm a Jew? Not only that, he wanted to rebel, and he had this sense of rebellion and vengeance. He wanted to get revenge for everything that was done to all of the Germans and anybody that helped in this genocide. Well, let's see what happened to him. In Mizmor Kuf Yutet, in Tehillim 119, it's called sometimes Timnaya Ape, right? The 8 faces. Why? Because it's 8 different faces that connect the material to the form. They connect this world to spirituality with 22 letters, right, that have immense holy value. What is Mizmor Kuf Yutet? It's Psalm 119. David HaMelech takes every letter of the alphabet. There's 22 letters in the alphabet. He takes each letter and gives you 8 psukim, 8 verses that start with that letter. Right? So there's 8 verses of Aleph, 8 verses of Bet, 8 verses. So that's why it's called 8 faces. It's 8 different ways, and it's one of the most powerful Tehillim that we have. The Chidah says that a person should break it down the whole entire week. You do it the first day of the week. Today is Sunday. You do Aleph, Bet, Gimel. Next day, Dalet, Hey, Vav, and so on and so forth throughout the week. And you complete it on Shabbat, whatever is left over. And the whole entire week, you go through reading Psalm 119. And that whole entire process of Psalm 119 is connecting the material to the spiritual form. And there, David HaMelech writes, Me'oivai techakmeni mitzvotecha כי לעולם היא לי. מאויבי תחכמני מצוותיך. From my enemies will make me wiser in your mitzvot. כי לעולם היא לי. For eternity, she is for me. Trippy pasuk, let's see. הפירוש הפשוט מכוון לפירוש הפנימי. The simple understanding of this pasuk, the pshat, teaches you about the sod of it. מי שיודע ללמוד אפילו מאויביו, whoever knows how to learn even from their enemies, אוסף את הניצוצות הכי נידחים, is able to gather the most pushed away, rejected sparks, the furthest away sparks. You're learning from a rasha, you're learning from an evil person that's coming to attack you. You learn from him how to connect to Hashem. You're taking all the sparks from inside of him. שזה שיא החוכמה. That's the chokhmah, right? What's the pasuk again? מאויבי תחכמני. From my enemies, give me chokhmah. Right? I'll learn chokhmah. mitzvotecha. I'll learn how to connect more to your mitzvot. ועל ידי זה הוא משלים את נפשו. And by way of this, you can perfect your soul, you can complete your soul. אגב, ששוחחנו בסעיף הקודם לגבי האוויר ארץ ישראלי, המחכים. In the previous lesson, we learned, in this series, we learned about the air of the land of Israel, right? And specifically Tzfat, which is the most purest air in the land of Israel, and Eretz Israel has the most purest air in the world that makes you wiser and makes you more spiritual. So when we talked about that, we talked about also the pure babies. And all of that comes down. Why does Israel have this purity? Because of the babies of Israel, the children of Israel that haven't sinned, and their mouth is just pure psukim and Torah all day long, tefillah to Hashem, songs to Hashem all day long. They've never sinned, they never used their mouth for bad. Their breath is what keeps the whole entire world in existence, and their breath is what purifies us and makes us smarter and smarter and smarter. All the kids in Israel are learning Torah and psukim and right? Torah, tziva, and that mouth is pure and never did anything wrong. So all of that breath that's coming in is just pure godliness, purifying the airs and making everybody here wise. Mo'ivai techakemeni. Now we have a kushiyah. You have those kids that make the whole world pure. And now you have this rasha, mo'ivai techakemeni. I'm going to get wiser from my enemies. How could it be that you learn chokhmah from a fool, from a sheda Germani, from Hitler, Yimach Shemo? How could it be that we learn something from Hitler, Yimach Shemo? He wanted to kill all of Hashem's nation. We're going to learn something from him? This is the intro. We haven't even got into it, right? This is the question that we have. So Rav Bezinson wants to give us an answer, and how we can learn even from the most crazy person. האמצעי השטני הנבחר על ידי הצוררים כדי לאבד את עם השם היה בעיקר גז קטלני ששמו ציקלון. The main tool that this satanic group of people, the German Aryan nation, wanted to wipe out the Jews. What was their number one tool that they wanted to use? A gas that's called zyklon, right? Zyklon. In Hebrew they call it zyklon. What are the letters of zyklon? Kol, kuf, vav, lamed, which is voice, kol, nun, tzadik, yud. Kol, na, tzi. The voice of a Nazi. Letters, zyklon, zyklon. The voice of a Nazi. ויש אומרים שהתייעץ עם המופתי Shem Rishaim Yikav. And the Yazils that even said that he asked, where did he get this advice from? He got it from the Mufti of Jerusalem to use Zyklon against the Jews. Yimach Shemo. Now the head of the Palestinians was best friends with Hitler and partners with him in everything that he was doing. They're an amazing nation, our brothers here that live around us. Or gazim harsanim achrim, or they used other different gases, right? Mustard gas, all these different gases that they used, but mainly it was cyclone. Kol Nazi. What's cyclone? Kol Nazi, the voice of the Nazis. באמצעות האוויר המורד שהושנם בכפייה הומתו מיליוני קדושים ללא שריד ופליט. By way of poisoned air being breathed into people against their will, millions of people died without any memory of them or remembrance of their body, nothing left of them. נמצא שהשראתו הדמונית הראתה לעולם מה הכי נוגד לקיומנו. His demonic minds that showed to the world what's the number one thing that opposes the Jewish people, the existence of the Jewish people? חנק על ידי אוויר רעיל והרסני. Strangulation by way of poison, venomous, destructive air. האם מדובר באוויר פיזי בלבד? Are we talking about physical air alone? Obviously not. כי הנה כפי שהקדמנו בפרק א', הנשימות מתחלקות לארבעה סוגים, פיזי, רגשי, שכלי ורוחני. We talked about in the beginning of the book, right? That the breath can be broken down into 4 different types. You have physical breath, it's just how we breathe. Emotional breath, meaning you walk into a wedding and there's simcha all around you, so you start to breathe more in a simcha way, or a funeral and you start to breathe in a more deeper way, right? That's emotional, it comes around you. And then there's sikhli, there's intellectual, meaning I know something's coming up, so I start to get excited, so I start to breathe. My breathing changes because mentally I understand that either there's a fear here or a cop or, right? But it's not an emotional thing that there's a vibe around me. It's something that I understand in my head. And then there's ruchani, there's spiritual, which is anytime you do any of those, but you connect it to Hashem, right? Any physical form of breathing, the second you bring Hashem into it, it becomes spiritual breathing, right? So those are the 4 stages of breathing. Physical, just regular breath that we do 90% of our day. Emotional breath, that we're influenced around us. Intellectual breath, that we think or anticipate something or get excited for something, but it's in our mind, we know it's coming up or it's about to happen. Or we learn something in Torah and it excites us, so we start to breathe differently. Or spiritual breathing, which is any of those connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So too, הרעלה על ידי פגיעה בנשימה תתחלק גם היא לדלת סוגים. So too, poisoning a person by way of breath also gets split into 4 different subjects. On the level of the body, by way of physical gases that are put into the breath, זו ההנשמה הכי מקולקלת שיכולה להיות. This is the worst breathing you could ever have, right? Poison inside the air, that forcing a person to breathe in poison. For those of you who haven't done this, I'll tell you, it's one of the most horrible things in the world. We have to do it in the army. In the army, they take us, we have a week where we learn about chemical warfare, biological and chemical warfare in our training. And part of that week is they teach you about all of the gases and tear gas and all of this different stuff. And we have to use tear gas in protest. And we're going to get exposed to it too, because there's wind. When you throw it at your enemy, it comes on you as well, right? So we had to work out, run a kilometer, crawl for 200 meters, do 20 push-ups, and then go inside a tent with tear gas canisters just open inside the tent, do jumping jacks, lift your gas mask off. The whole time you're running with the gas mask on as well. And then you lift it off and you have to say your name, your military number and everything. Horrible. It's this, you can't, like literally immediately your whole body's on fire and you just feel all of this just burning. It's one of the worst things I've ever been through in my life. And that wasn't even close, that's tear gas. That's not Kol Nazi, that's not cyclone, that's not mustard gas, that's not different things that are way more intense and actually, destroy your insides. So that's the worst thing you could do, physically, right? Healthy breathing is the first condition to life, right? The first thing a doctor wants to see a baby do is to cry. Why cry? Not to cry, to breathe. Just to open up its mouth and its lungs and to get the mucus going and to start to push all that out and to breathe, right? Healthy breathing is the first most important thing you need to live. When it comes to a level of mental, emotional, so then there's also arala avirit. There's pollution of the air. אפס כי היא כבר מופשטת מתאי אוויר פיזיים, זוהי האווירה הנוצרת על ידי הסביבה. Now we're not talking about physical air, we're talking about the avira, we're talking about the vibe, the aura, the energy in a room, in a situation that's created by way of the people that are surrounding me. Hen letova, vehen lera, whether we're talking about for good or for bad, right? Good group of friends coming together to sing songs and do good things together, learn Torah. It's going to be an amazing energy around there. People coming together to drink and to do nonsense. It's going to be a different energy there. דיבורים טובים מחזקים אפילו למי שלא מבין אותם. Beautiful words that give chizuk, they strengthen a person even if you don't really understand what was said. And you see this a lot of time, Balei Tshuva, fresh off the street, go inside a shiur Torah, they sit there for an hour, most 90% of it was way above their head, right? For the level of their understanding that they're at, but they leave there feeling amazing. Because it's just good energy. The words created a good energy in the room. The person sat there for an hour, they left feeling better. Understood or not, it doesn't matter. The energy in the room was good. You're breathing in whatever energy is around you, and that influences you. Negative words, they have their damage that they do. Obviously, radio waves, right? Just think about in the world, all the radio waves that are traveling in the world, carrying news, tragedy, pain, horrible music, politics, that's just traveling through the air in every country, everywhere. Radio waves, and they're there, and they're holding that voice. That voice is literally traveling through the air. It's the cars, and then it goes into a car and then gets amplified even more. It goes into a phone, it gets amplified even more. All the phone calls in the world, all of the things that are going on the world, think about it. Think about how much negative energy is just surrounding us because of radio waves alone. Just the radio. Then think about AirPods and Bluetooth head speakers and phone, and car radios and all these different things. Buses, right? Satellites, all these different things. They're sending waves and there's messages inside those waves. That energy, whatever is being put out there in the world, is around us. So too for us. Imagine how much more we want to put out good energy. We want to talk well in our house. Right? Who do we have in our house? What is talked about in our tables? Right? The energy is going out there. כהכנה היסטורית להשמדת עם על ידי הדיבור, הפיצו הנאצים הארורים במשך 6 השנים שקדמו למלחמה, משנת 33 ועד 39, כמויות של רעל דיבורי. As a preparation for the actual Holocaust, leading up to it from 33 when he got elected, Yimach Shimo, until 1939, the Nazis were mainly busy with putting out propaganda. That's on the level of speech. Right? They were putting out negative speech about the Jews. They were putting out negative messages about the Jews. They were always putting us down, and that was the energy that was created in Germany, in Austria, in all these places, that the Jew is the problem. For 6 years this was going on in all the radio waves, in all of the newspapers, in all the media, in everything, the speech in the bars, right, in the gentlemen's clubs, everywhere it was just the Jew, the Jew, the Jew, the Jew, the Jew. So it all started with speech. כל השמצה ודיבה שהוציאו על עם השם נחשבת מבחינה סוציולוגית לאוויר רעיל מאוד שהיווה תחמושת אכזרית בעבור הרוצחים. All of this propaganda for those 6 years was like ammunition. It's sociological ammunition for the people that later, when the permission was fully given, they had everything they needed. They were pumped up already. Right? These murderers, they had everything they needed because they had been hearing for 6 years just this fuel, this ammunition of reasons to go at the Jew. This energy surrounding them, just fueling them. That's how they pulled the German people into the whole thing. People like to say, yeah, they're just soldiers following orders. Right? No. There's Germans that also snitched. There's Jews hiding here. There's this and this, and they went into their own towns to find Jews and helped very much. Right? How? Where did that all come from? 6 years of hardcore propaganda and speech, negative speech that completely blemished and polluted the air of Germany and made everybody ready to help. במקביל גרמה התעלמות חלישות הדעת מצד קורבנות שלהם. What is the other side of the propaganda? That the people that are being spoken about, the Jews, also started to feel weak. They start to lose their strength. Just by the energy in the air of the negative speech against the Jews start to get weaker. The Jews start to get weaker in their mind. להוביל את עם השם לייאוש גמור. To bring Am Hashem to complete ייאוש, complete despair. ייאוש is Gematria 317. Shoah is Gematria 317. The Holocaust and despair, same Gematria, same numerical value. מה אימא? אין אנחנו העם הנבחר יותר? Little Jewish boys and kids would ask their parents, Mom, we're not the chosen people anymore? Hashem doesn't love us anymore? That's what you would hear from the kids. כך השיגו על ידי הפרופגנדה את אותה מטרה חבלנית שהשיג הציקלון. Propaganda and cyclone had the same outcome. A little boy crying out to his mother, am I not a chosen? Am I not Am Hashem anymore? Does Hashem not love me anymore? Look how they're talking about us. Look at the... אולם הפעם ברמת הרגשית, הרי שהאוויר הרעיל קוטל, הדיבה מלהיבה רגשי שנאה באלה ששומעים אותה, ומכניסה רפאין רוח בליבם של המדוברים. So on the level of cyclone, that's physical, right? But what's the end of breathing in cyclone? You die. Here, on the propaganda level, on the speech level, what was the outcome of it? Hatred in the hearts of those who listen to it, and weakness and depression in the side of those who are being spoken about. Another part that we can't separate from the spiritual ruach, the emotional ruach, is music and everything that's connected to music, right? Music influences a person a lot. הן מנגינה קולית שכולה רוח, הן כלים מכלים שונים, הקשה, הנשיפה, המופעלים בקצב. Right? Whether we're talking about a person singing, filled with ruach, or we're talking about instruments, right? That have different beats and different paces. ותראו איך ההורים הקפידו על התזמורת שלהם ואיך שירי הלכת שלהם הפיצו אלימות וכוחנות. The Germans were known, the Nazis were known for their bands. They were big into music, right? Compositions, classical music as well, all these different things in bands and playing music all the time. I had a problem with this when I was a kid in school. They started to play at a certain point, they started to play music in between classes. In the speakers, public school. And I hated it. And I didn't know this at the time, but in my gut, I felt like I was in a Nazi camp. I remember clear as day. I said it to friends there, I was like, this probably was what the Nazis did. And they weren't playing bad music, right? They were playing like okay music, but like to get you to move to class faster. I knew that was the point. That in between class, they play this music to make you move faster, right? And I just knew it was psychological manipulation. And at 13 years old, 14 years old, I remember thinking about Nazi camps. And then a few months ago, I read this book, and I see here, and it's like, whoa, that connected the dots. Immediately, I remembered that day when they started playing the music. It's like in the middle of the year, they just decided from now on, we're going to play music in the middle of the class. And it never sat well with me. See here, that this music, it was so important for them. But what was the outcome of this music? Violence and like strong rule and like power, right? They were trying to control you, they're trying to rule you. אין ספק שהדבר תרם תוספת רוח סערה לכאוס הברברי. Their barbaric chaos obviously was fueled more by the music that was around them and all this music that was being played in these bands and this intense music. תיזכר תורת רבנו שלפיה מנגן רשע מחליש את מאזיניו. Rabbi Nachman talks about this in the third Torah of the Likutei Moharan, how a person who's not kosher making music affects the person that listens to it, right? We shouldn't be listening to people that are not kosher. It goes inside your brain. It goes right into your heart, into your head, and it affects you. What are you listening to? What are you breathing in when you listen to someone's music, right? Especially if you're in front of them, because then their actual air is coming out. It's all of his negative things inside of him that he wrote out on the page and he's putting out there, and then you take it in, and you're taking in this bad. So that was the welcome to Israel. Right, so that was on the emotional level. On the intellectual level, אין כמדעי רוח להנשים עוז רוח בנוער. התנועה הלאומנית בסגנון האבינאי של המאה ה-19 הצליחה לייסד אידיאולוגיה שתצדיק למפרע את תועבת טוהר הגזע והעליונות האיראנית בהמלטה של שיקום כלכלי שלמחרת מלחמת העולם הראשונה. When it came to an intellectual level, right, what was happening there, that there was this nationalistic movement of Vienna, right, from Vienna that was coming out of the 1900s, that was able to create this ideological approach that would retroactively give a stamp of approval to this genocidal Aryan race supremacy, and that mainly was by way of rehabilitation of the economic situation in Germany after the Great Depression and after the First World War, right? This ideology, we're going to be nationalists, we're going to take care of Germany, and we're going to come back to strength, and we're going to get back our money, we're going to get out of this depression and out of this First World War. And that's nationalism, right? Nationalism that came with it, socialism, brought in this stormy winds into the world, which was completely the opposite of understanding and logic. Stupidness, right? Foolishness, that there's no other example like it. Right? This is the idea of Michael. אתה יכול להגיד להם להתרחק מהחלון קצת?
יש פה מלח?
לא יודע. Right? So socialism and nationalism brought into the world such shtuyot, such nonsense. Like they said, הגינה המובטחת לכל אזרח גרמני בצמוד לביתו מברלין ועד מוסקבה בכלל. They promised that every German citizen from Berlin to Moscow would have a house with their own private garden. It's not even logical. It's a stupid thing to even promise your people, right? It's like, what are you going to do? המיתוס הגזעני שרואה את עצמו עליון מכולם מהצד הגנטי, this mythical race that sees themselves higher than everybody else on the side of genetics, וכל יצור אחר כתת אנושי הראוי לחיסול או לשעבוד, and everybody else that's not them, that's not an Aryan, is deserving of either being killed or becoming a slave. והנה כל מי ששנאה רגילה בליבו לא מצליחים לשכנע אותו לקום לקרב להשמדת עם. Whoever does have hatred commonly placed in their heart, they have a lot of hatred in their heart, they hear messages of hatred, it's very easy to get them to come help you in a genocide. They're filled with hatred. And so they have the rage inside of them. They're not so easy to bring them to genocide, but they might get seduced or brought into opinions that are twisted that would cause for a genocide, that would cause for bloodshed, right? I might not necessarily put on a Nazi uniform, but I'll donate to your army. I also think the Jews are a problem, they need to get out of here. I'm not going to go do it, but I'll help you do it, right? It's in our generation too. You see, it's the same thing going on right now, right? There's people out there, they're going to join Hamas? No. They're going to leave their college campus in America to go live in Gaza? No. But I'll send money to Gaza that's going to be 100% taken by Hamas, because Hamas is in charge of everything there. No, but I'm not going to go do it? No. But the propaganda is strong enough that I'm willing to go give money towards that thing. I'm not going to do it. Same thing in our generation. Same thing in our generation. The last thing is the spiritual poison, right, that the Nazis did. And with this, we're going to stop after this. We're not finished with this, right? We're going to stop before we get the answer. But we're just introducing the idea. Next time we'll talk about the answer. Finally, is the spiritual poison. That's pushing away the godly spirits from upon the face of the earth. L'shem chilon mushlam, in the name of complete secularism. דוחה האדם המודרני לגמרי את האלוהות מכל עסקיו בהפרידו דת ממדינה. The modern person separates godliness from every facet of his life by way of, right, the separation of church and state, what we call in our time, right? The separation of religion from the government. That's not just on the level of government. That means also, I tell this to American people all the time, American Jews, your rabbi, not everyone's rabbi, because some rabbis are not meant to be rabbis, right? But your rabbi is not only there for spiritual things that happen in your life, your bar mitzvah and your wedding and your divorce. Your rabbi is there for your business advice, for your day-to-day, for dealing with your issues that you have inside your heart. He's there for everything. Also for your mundane physical things. If he says out of his humility, I can't answer the question, Baruch Hashem, that's good. But take the question. Rabbi, I need to hire this person and they act this in this way. Do you think it would be a good fit? That's a legitimate question to take to a rabbi that sits and learns Torah all day long. Again, not every rabbi is really like that. But if you have a rabbi that's a Talmid Chacham, and I bless you that you have one, right? You go to him with your life. He's not just there for spiritual things, right? So separation of church and state that we all grew up in, where we don't do religious things here, we don't do that, right? That trickles down into a person then not asking advice from the rabbi for everyday mundane things, because they think, no, the rabbi is there for spiritual things, for bar mitzvahs and weddings and for Shabbats and for Kiddush. When I want to sponsor something, when someone dies and I need a funeral, then I talk to the rabbi. It's not at all ever how it was until the modern era. The rabbi was the ruler of the community, the end-all be-all, the doctor, the everything. And even if there was a doctor, you went to the rabbi first. That's what Jews do. Right? That's what's written in the Gemara. You have a person that's sick in your family. Go to the Chacham, go to the Tzaddik, go to the rabbi, so that he should pray to Hashem for help, for mercy. That's the way we do things. We go to Chachamim. When they started to move in their movement, right, the main thing that they were trying to do is atheism, secularism. וכך הוסיפו והציעו הנאצים שהחלו את מבצעם המרחיב שקראו לו בשיא הציניות מלחמה פילוסופית בעם היהודי. When they started their campaign and they declared it, they themselves called it with the most tziniut is sarcasm. Sarcasm, right? They called it, what do they call their war? Milchama Pilosofit Be'ama Yehudi, the philosophical war in the Jewish nation. That's what they called their war. Philosophical war in the Jewish nation. What's the reason for this declaration that they did? Ekev avatam leolam et inyan hadat ve'brit milah. Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf, he doesn't write it here. He says the reason is, and it is the reason, because he was the leader, he's the one that made the movement. He writes in Mein Kampf, in Neshima, he writes that the Jews brought two blemishes to the world. One was dat, consciousness, meaning matzvun, if a person's weak, I have to take care of them. I need to help people, right? I can't just do whatever I want. Can you close the door, bro? Good. And the other thing was brit milah. He calls it a spiritual blemish, a mental blemish, and a physical blemish. We blemish the mind by way of telling the world you have to be conscious, you have to help people, you have to give tzedakah. It's not survival of the fittest. It's not the dog-eat-dog world. We all have to take care of each other. We're all here for each other, to represent Hashem, to be merciful. That was a blemish in the mind, according to his opinion. And the other thing is that we chopped off a piece of our flesh. We made a blemish on the body. The body came out perfect, and we remove a piece of it. Sfarot etiyostiot b'shorshan. These are atheist ideas at their core, because the atheist removes God from the world, meaning it's all just us human beings. Let's go. If I want your wife, I'm going to kill you. Who's going to stop me? Who's to say I'm wrong? Obviously, not every atheist is like that. Most atheists are actually nice people, right? They're respectful to other people, and it's okay, right? But in a world that didn't have Judaism, that's how it would be. And look at the Nazis. They said, hey, you're not a human just like me. You're a Jew. You're worse than a cockroach. I need to kill you. You're the reason for all the problems. And where did that come from? From their atheist, man is in charge. God's not here. It's all about us.
Hitler said that's the worst thing that the Jews brought was...
So we just said, right? The conscience, the morality, and the brit milah. Those are two, the blemish of the mind and the blemish of the body.
He said he was on that too.
And those are the reason of it, right? One of them one of the Nazis that was caught when he was asked the question, "Haketzad umma mefutachat shekmochem itbatla lechole nefesh barama sharui lektonet kfiyah." How is such a wise nation? The Germans are super intelligent, right? They're one of the smartest people in the whole entire world. Germans, you see it in their cars, in their Bosch, BMW, they're geniuses, right? Their economy, everything that they have going on there. They let in a whole bunch of idiots, but that was a little bit of karma. That was above their power, right? They let their gates open, and now they're going to deal with what they did to us 70, 80 years ago with our cousins. But you hated one Semite, you got the other ones. But they're smart people, and they asked this one Nazi in the trials, how did such a smart nation fall into complete bitul, nullifying yourselves to such a sick person that should have been in a straitjacket in a mental institution. How did you guys go into it? That was the question. בעדות לכך הן ההסתרות שבהן הוא מופיע בשיא אחד קריזות שלו. Right? You have videos of Hitler in a kriz. How do you say kriza in English? I don't know, like a...
Crisis.
It comes from crisis, but it's not what I mean. In Hebrew, you say like a... When like a... an episode, right? Like when a crazy person like freaks out, right? In Hebrew, that's how you say kriza. Like a drug addict, when he starts to like trip out, right? You call it kriza, right? So there's videos of Hitler, Neshima, like tripping, like in his, in a craze, right? עד כדי שהאומה המפותחת הזו הקריבה למטורף עלז את מיטב הנוער שלה. What did the Germans essentially do? They gave their best children, all these smart children, to this army. They gave their children away, their men away, to this man, this crazy man. את עצמותה ל-60 שנה, their independence for 60 years. את כבודה, their honor, ובעיקר את המצפון המינימלי שלה, their most finest mental conscience they gave away. וכך ענה הנאשם. This was the answer of that Nazi. כל זה קרה לנו מפני שנרדפנו מאלוהים. נפרדנו מאלוהים, סליחה. All of this happened because we separated ourselves from God. That's what the Nazi said on the stand. וכך ענה הנאשם. הרי שהניתוק מרוח הקודש, detachment, separation from Holy Spirit, from the Spirit of Hashem, אפילו עם קליטתה של הרוח ההיא משובשת, even if receiving the ruach is messed up, even if it's paganism, even if it's idol worship, but there's still a connection to godliness, because essentially every idol behind it is Hashem as well, right? It's a person down here believing in something up there, that's already a connection to Hashem. Even if there's a million masks in front of it, at the core, even that goy Neshama wants to connect to Hashem. Just the elephant with 5 arms is also attractive, right? To the body. But even you ask the Hindus at the top, they don't believe in 5,000 gods. It's one God with 5,000 expressions. They make the mistake of making images and names and personalities, right? But at the core, they believe in Hashem at one. So even that little bit, if you detach even from that, גורבת בסוף להתבטלות לשוטה התאבדות. It will cause you to give in and to nullify if you're not going to nullify yourself to God, you're going to end up nullifying yourself to some cult leader, some demonic, genocidal tyrant, right? Who's a complete idiot, fool. And that's suicide. The German people committed suicide. Why? Because they detached themselves from God. Hint, hint, America, wake up, because you're on the same path. Right? Trump's putting this last fight to bring the people back to God there. The Met he is. Right? Like he talks about God, especially since he got shot. Right? The whole message has changed. And he's trying. Let's give him the credit. He's trying. Right? But it's upon the American people. For a long time they've been separated from God, and then the country was started in a connection to God. And it's just in the process of detach. And now at the height of the American Empire, what's going to be? Now you haven't left the decision. The height of the American Empire has already happened. Right? Now's the decision. Do we go back to God? Or are we going to continue to detach? The outcome of continuing to detach is losing yourself completely to the point where you do crazy, historically irrational, disgusting things as a nation. And everybody gets involved. The Nazis were successful in taking out 1/3 of the Jewish people. Right? The average amount of blood a person has inside their body is 6 liters around. Taking out of 1/3 of that would be 2 liters of blood. If I were to take out, or if a person was to lose 2 liters of blood, they would die immediately. You would die immediately. 2 liters of blood out of 6 liters in your body, no one can handle that. If that's the case, where's the hope that we're going to be able to resurrect ourselves as a Jewish people? We lost 2/3 of our blood. goy kechol hagoyim, and without any imitations of kegoy lechol hagoyim, like every other nation, like some people in our nation are trying to do. Make us a nation like every other nation. That's not who we are. That's not a resurrection. Having a state and a flag and a national anthem and a coin, that's not the resurrection of the Jewish people. That's not getting back up. That's a nation like all the other nations. How do we get the original fashion, the original Jewish people, the original Jewish nation to rise back up after the Shoah? To hear the answer, you're going to have to watch the next class.